When a scared little boy whispers that his mother is crying behind a locked bathroom door, a powerful CEO is forced into a moment he never trained for. What begins as a simple act of help slowly unravels a hidden truth that binds their lives in ways none of them ever imagined. Daniel stood in the quiet hallway with his small hands curled around the straps of his backpack, trying to make himself invisible. The morning rush of employees moving through the glass corridors had faded, leaving only the hum of the air conditioning and the soft clicking of distant keyboards. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, trying to breathe normally, but the worry inside him kept tightening. His mother had told him to wait outside the restroom for just a minute. It had been much longer than that, long enough for him to feel the familiar heaviness in his chest that came whenever something wasn't right. Adrian Cole had not planned to be anywhere near the childcare wing that morning, yet here he was, walking with a stack of reports in hand, distracted by numbers that suddenly felt less important when he noticed the child. Daniel wasn't crying, but his eyes carried a quiet kind of fear that pulled Adrian to a stop. It surprised him how quickly concern replaced the usual distance he kept as CEO. He approached slowly, unsure if he was intruding. "Are you lost?" he asked gently. Daniel lifted his chin, hesitated, then whispered, "No, sir." His voice was small, barely above a breath. "My mommy's in there." He pointed toward the restroom door. She's not coming out." Adrian felt the moment shift. He knelt down to Daniel's height, trying not to look intimidating in his tailored suit. "Is she sick?" he asked. Daniel shook his head. "Then why do you think she's not coming out?" Daniel swallowed hard. "She's crying." The words were simple, yet they carried weight that settled heavily on Adrian's heart. He could see now that Daniel wasn't just waiting. He was guarding the door, afraid to leave it. Adrian placed a hand on the child's shoulder. "Let's check on her, okay?" He stood and approached the door, knocking gently. Alina? He had seen her around the building many times. Quiet, hardworking, always polite. She cleaned offices during early shifts and evening hours, rarely making eye contact, always moving with careful efficiency. "It's Adrian," he said. "Are you all right?" There came no answer, only the faintest sound of a breath being held back. Daniel listened, as though the silence could break him. Adrian knocked again, softer. "We're here if you need anything." Still nothing. Adrian glanced down at Daniel, who seemed torn between fear and hope. "She was fine earlier," Daniel whispered. "She said we were gonna have a good day. I don't know what happened." Adrian tried the handle. Lock. He stepped back, giving the moment space. "Alina," he said, voice calm. "I'm not here in any official way. I'm not here as your boss. I'm just someone who wants to make sure you're okay. You don't have to talk if you don't want to, but please let us know you're safe." A faint rustle came from behind the door, then a shaky exhale. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "I'm fine, sir. I need a minute." Daniel moved closer to the door. "Mommy, please come out," he whispered. "Please." The sound of his voice broke whatever fragile wall she had tried to hold up. Adrian heard a quiet sob slip through the silence. It wasn't loud, but it was the kind of sound that came from someone who had held too much inside for too long. Adrian's chest tightened. This wasn't a normal bad day. This was a woman at the edge of something deeper. He stepped closer to the door again. "Alina, no one is judging you. You don't have to hide. It's just us." You're allowed to have moments like this. There was a pause, then the soft click of the lock turning. The door opened only an inch at first, as though she wasn't sure she should be seen. When she finally pulled it wider, her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair slightly undone from stress rather than carelessness. She avoided Adrian's gaze immediately, focusing instead on her son, who rushed into her arms. "I'm sorry," she whispered to Daniel, smoothing his hair. "I didn't mean to scare you." Daniel clung to her waist, shaking his head. "You weren't scary. I just didn't want you to be alone." Adrian stepped back to give them space, but stayed close enough to show he wasn't leaving. "Is there anything we can do?" he asked softly. Alina wiped her face quickly with the sleeve of her shirt, trying to make herself presentable. "No, sir. I'm okay now. I just had a rough morning." Her eyes flickered downward, betraying the truth she was trying to hide. It wasn't just a rough morning. Adrian had seen that look before, in employees who had reached their breaking point, in parents stretched thin, in people who carried more burdens than support. "Alina," he said in a calm, steady tone, "you don't have to pretend for me." She brushed hair from her face, embarrassed by the vulnerability she hadn't meant anyone to witness. "I'm sorry you had to see me like this. I know how it must look. I'm usually stronger than this." Daniel stuck close to her side, staring up at Adrian as though silently asking him to fix something. The trust in his eyes was surprisingly deep for a child who barely knew him. It made Adrian straighten his posture, determined not to fail that unspoken plea. "What happened?" he asked quietly. "If you're comfortable sharing." Alina hesitated, weighing pride against exhaustion. "It's nothing new," she murmured. "Bills stacking up, rent going up, extra shifts not being approved. And this morning my supervisor scolded me in front of others for something I didn't even do. It just all piled up at once." She looked away, as if ashamed of her own honesty. Adrian felt something stir in him, not pity, but a kind of protective compassion he hadn't expected to feel so strongly. "You shouldn't have to carry all of that alone," he said. "Let me help." She shook her head immediately. "No, sir. I don't want to take advantage. I just need to handle things better." "It's not taking advantage," he replied. "It's being human." Her lips trembled at the sincerity in his tone, but she said nothing. Daniel looked between them, sensing something shift. For the first time since Adrian had found him, the fear in his eyes softened. Adrian took a slow breath. "If you ever feel overwhelmed again, please come to me. Not as an employer, as someone who cares." Alina finally met his gaze, and in that instant, he saw the truth. She wasn't weak. She was exhausted, cornered by circumstances she never asked for, and yet she was still standing. He admired that more than he expected. Chapter 1 ends with the three of them in that quiet hallway. The boy who didn't want his mother to suffer alone, the mother trying to stay strong for him, and the CEO realizing he had stepped into a moment that would change far more than he understood yet. The days that followed moved quietly, yet something had shifted beneath the surface. Adrian found himself noticing things he had never seen before. Small details about the people who worked in his building, especially Alina. He saw her arriving earlier than most employees, her steps slow but determined. She kept her head down, often skipping breakfast, sometimes skipping lunch, sometimes eating nothing more than a single piece of fruit she tucked into her pocket for later. He watched without intruding, trying to understand the weight she carried. It surprised him how deeply he thought about her, and the moment in the hallway. He had replayed her trembling voice and Daniel's frightened eyes more times than he cared to admit. One afternoon, as he walked past the staff break area, he found Daniel sitting alone at a small table, drawing with dull pencils on scrap paper. He looked up, startled when he saw Adrian. "Oh, hi, sir," he murmured, quickly sitting up straighter. "You can call me Adrian," he said gently. "What are you working on?" Daniel pushed the paper toward him. It was a drawing of a tiny apartment room, a bed, a small table, and a window with bars. He had drawn himself and his mother standing close together, almost touching shoulders, as though they were always afraid to be separated. Adrian studied it silently, feeling something twist inside him. "You're very good at drawing," he said softly. Daniel shrugged. "It's just our room. Mommy says one day we'll get a bigger place, with a door that doesn't shake when the wind hits it." Adrian set the paper down carefully. "Does the wind blow hard there?" Daniel nodded. "Sometimes it feels like the whole building might fall." He didn't say it with fear, only with a weary honesty that sounded too grown for a child his age. Adrian sat beside him. "Do you tell your mom when you're scared?" Daniel thought about it. "I try not to. She already worries too much." The simplicity of the answer cut deeper than any long explanation. Children shouldn't have to protect their parents from worry. But Daniel had learned to. Adrian felt the urge to do something, anything. But he also knew pushing too soon might hurt more than help. So he chose something small. "Would you like better pencils?" he asked with a warm tone. Daniel's face lit up for a moment, before dimming again. "Mommy says we shouldn't ask for things." "You're not asking," Adrian replied. "I'm offering." Daniel hesitated, then nodded shyly. Later that day, Adrian watched as Alina scrubbed a hallway floor with careful precision, her knees pressed against the tiles. She didn't look up until she sensed someone standing near. When she realized it was Adrian, she froze for a second before returning to her work. "You don't have to kneel like that," Adrian said softly. "There are tools. They break often," she replied quickly, "and replacements are slow. You should tell someone." She gave a small, tired smile. "I have. Sometimes it takes a while." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "You shouldn't be treated this way." She paused, glancing toward him with a look that carried a mixture of gratitude and discomfort. "It's a job, sir. I can't afford to lose it." "I'm not talking about losing it," he said. "I'm talking about being treated with respect." Alina lowered her eyes and resumed cleaning. "Respect doesn't come easily for people like me." The words sank into him like stones. "It should," he murmured. She didn't respond, but her silence said enough. A few days later, the situation took a sudden turn. It was early evening when one of the childcare workers called Adrian directly, a rare occurrence. "It's Daniel," she said urgently. "He's running a fever, and his mother isn't answering her phone." Adrian didn't think twice. He headed straight to the daycare area, finding Daniel curled up on a small couch, his face flushed, breathing uneven. A caregiver placed a cool cloth on his forehead. "He keeps asking for his mother," she explained. "I'll find her," Adrian said, but Daniel's hand weakly grabbed his sleeve. "Please don't leave," he whispered. The small voice held so much fear that Adrian stayed. "I won't go anywhere," he assured him. Minutes later, Alina burst through the doorway, her hair disheveled, her clothes damp from rushing. "Daniel!" she cried, falling to her knees beside him. She touched his face with trembling hands. "Baby, I'm here." Daniel blinked slowly. "Mommy, I tried to wait." "You did so well," she whispered, tears forming. "I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner." "It's not your fault," Adrian said gently. "He'll be okay, but he needs to see a doctor." Alina nodded quickly, trying to lift Daniel, but her hands weren't steady. Without asking, Adrian stepped forward. "Let me help," he said. She wanted to refuse. He could see the pride battling inside her, but she looked at Daniel's pale face and finally nodded. Adrian carried Daniel carefully, feeling the small weight of the child against him, feeling Daniel's head rest weakly on his shoulder. Alina walked beside them, wringing her hands, whispering prayers under her breath. At the clinic, Adrian stayed through the entire checkup. Daniel had a viral fever. The doctor said, nothing dangerous, but needing rest and medicine. Alina exhaled with relief, but still looked shaken. "I failed him today," she whispered as they waited for the prescription. "No," Adrian said firmly. "You didn't fail. You're doing everything you can." She shook her head. "Everything I can is never enough." He studied her expression. Tired, fearful, protective. "You're carrying too much alone," he said softly. "I don't have a choice." "You do," he replied. "You just haven't had anyone on your side." The words hit her harder than he expected. She blinked rapidly, trying to maintain composure. "Why are you doing this?" she asked quietly. "You're the CEO. You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," he interrupted. "But I want to." She didn't respond. She simply looked at him, as though unsure how to accept kindness that didn't demand anything in return. When Daniel finally fell asleep in his mother's arms, Adrian walked them to the car. Alina hesitated when he opened the back door. "I can take the bus. It's late," he said. "Let me drive you, please." After a long moment, she nodded. The ride was quiet, filled with exhaustion rather than awkwardness. When they reached her building, a narrow, aging structure with peeling paint, Adrian felt a heaviness settle in his chest. "Thank you," Alina said softly, "for everything." "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "Just let me know if you need anything." Her eyes lingered on him, uncertain but softened. "I will try." He watched her carry Daniel inside, disappearing up the dim staircase. As the door closed behind them, Adrian realized this wasn't just concern anymore. Something deeper had taken root, something he couldn't ignore. Days blended into each other, and though life returned to its usual rhythm, a quiet thread connected Adrian, Alina, and Daniel. It wasn't spoken, but it grew stronger each time their paths crossed. Adrian noticed how Alina's shoulders no longer hunched quite as much when she walked into work, though there were still moments when exhaustion shadowed her eyes. He tried not to hover, yet he found himself looking for excuses to be near the cleaning crew's floor. He pretended he was checking on building operations, but the truth was simpler. He wanted to see her. One afternoon, as he stepped into an unused conference room, he froze. Alina was inside, arranging cleaning supplies. But what caught his attention wasn't the mop or the bucket. It was the whiteboard behind her, covered in soft pencil sketches. "Did someone leave those?" he asked without thinking. Alina jumped, startled. "Oh, no, those are mine." I was just messing around. She reached for the eraser, embarrassed, but Adrian gently stopped her. Wait. He studied the sketches, simple room layouts, color swatches, furniture arrangements. They were beautiful, clean lines, thoughtful balance, warmth. You designed these? She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. It's nothing special, just something I used to like. What do you mean, used to? He asked. She hesitated before answering. Years ago, I wanted to study interior design. I even saved for classes. But then life changed. I got pregnant, and school had to wait. Then bills came, rent went up, jobs were hard to keep, and dreams don't feed kids. She laughed softly, but it didn't hide the ache behind her words. You're talented, Adrian said. Very talented. That doesn't matter now, she murmured. It matters, he insisted, and it's not too late. She looked at him with a mixture of disbelief and longing. Dreams aren't for people like me, sir. Then maybe you need someone to remind you they still can be. She didn't respond, but her silence wasn't rejection. It was the sound of someone not used to being believed in. Later that week, Adrian invited her to look at an office renovation he had been planning for months, but never found the right designer for. I just want your opinion, he said casually, though his heartbeat thudded with hope the way he rarely admitted. Alina resisted at first. I'm not qualified. Just tell me what you see, he encouraged. Nothing official. She stepped into the office, eyes scanning the space. It's too cold, she murmured. You need warmer tones, softer lighting. This wall could come down to open the room, and maybe plants along the windows. As she spoke, something lit inside her, confidence that had been buried under years of survival. Adrian watched the transformation with quiet awe. She wasn't just talented, she had vision. You're seeing things my architects didn't, he said. She laughed nervously. Please don't joke. I'm not joking. Her cheeks warmed, but she looked away quickly. As days passed, Adrian gave her small design tasks, choosing fabrics, arranging sample layouts, sketching ideas. She worked in secrecy, unsure if she deserved the chance. But Daniel noticed the spark returning to her. One evening, he sat beside her at the small table in their cramped room. Mommy, you're drawing again, he said softly. You smile when you draw. She cupped his cheek. I haven't smiled much in a long time. Maybe you should do it more, Daniel said. Meanwhile, Adrian continued to spend time with Daniel whenever he visited the childcare area. He helped him draw, helped with homework, even brought him a small box of colored pencils that Daniel treated like treasure. Their bond grew naturally, the way sunlight touches a window without being asked. But with closeness came whispers. Office gossip spread quickly, the CEO spending too much time around the cleaning staff, especially one woman. People lowered their voices when Alina passed, some letting their glances linger too long. She felt it like needles against her skin. One morning, she overheard two employees whisper, she must be trying to get something out of him. She'll use sympathy to climb up, another muttered. Alina froze, her stomach twisting. She had worked too hard, stayed too invisible, to be dragged into something she never asked for. When she saw Adrian later, she kept her gaze low. He noticed immediately. Is something wrong? He asked. No, she said too quickly. I just have a lot of work. He stepped closer. Alina, talk to me. But she shook her head, pulling away both physically and emotionally. You've already helped more than enough. I don't want people thinking I'm getting special treatment. You're not, he said gently. You're earning everything through your talent. Maybe you believe that, she whispered, but others don't. He wanted to argue, but the fear in her eyes stopped him. She wasn't pushing him away because she wanted to. She was trying to protect herself and Daniel, so he gave her space, though it felt like stepping backward in the dark. A few days later, Daniel noticed the growing silence between them. When he arrived at the childcare room, he asked quietly, "Did I do something wrong?" "No, buddy," Adrian said. "Not at all." "Then why doesn't mommy talk to you now?" Adrian offered a small, sad smile. "Adults get scared sometimes too." Daniel looked down, tracing shapes on the table. "I don't want you to go away." The sincerity of the confession pierced through Adrian's restraint. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. Still, the shift remained. Alina avoided being alone with him. She kept interactions short, her tone polite but distant. The warmth that had been growing felt suddenly fragile. Everything finally unraveled one evening when Daniel didn't show up at the childcare room at his usual time. The caretaker assumed he'd already been picked up, but Alina hadn't arrived. When she rushed in minutes later, panicked and breathless, her face drained when she saw the empty chair. "Where's Daniel?" she cried. "He's not with you?" the caregiver asked. "No, he always waits here." Her voice trembled with terror. Adrian, who had been walking past, stopped cold at the sound of her panic. "What happened?" "He's gone," she whispered. "Adrian, I can't find my son." The world seemed to tilt. Adrian's voice turned firm, controlled. "We'll find him, I promise." Her hand shook violently. "He must be scared. He must be alone. This is my fault." "No," Adrian said, gripping her shoulders gently. "We'll find him." And for the first time since she had pushed him away, she looked at him not with fear or caution, but with desperate, fragile hope. The building erupted into motion the moment the alarm spread. Security teams swept floors, employees checked hallways, and doors were propped open as people searched for any sign of a small, frightened boy. But for Alina, every passing second felt like a lifetime stretching into darkness. She walked fast, then ran, then stopped because her legs shook so violently she could barely stand. "Daniel," she cried, her voice breaking. "Baby, answer me." Adrian stayed close, steady and controlled despite his racing pulse. "We'll find him," he repeated, though inside he battled the same fear. "Think, Alina, does he have a usual hiding spot? Somewhere he goes when he's scared?" She pressed both hands against her forehead, trying to breathe. "He likes quiet places, corners, small rooms. Sometimes he hides when he thinks he's bothering people." "I should have seen this coming." "Stop," Adrian said firmly. "This isn't your fault." But she didn't hear him. Her mind spiraled. What if someone heard him? What if he wandered outside? "He's just a child, Adrian. He's all I have." Adrian touched her arm gently. "And we are going to get him back." They split up to cover more ground. Adrian checked the stairwells, basement, storage rooms. He called Daniel's name until his throat tightened. Between searches, he pressed the elevator buttons again and again, timing each floor. Nothing. No trace. Meanwhile, Alina ran into the parking garage, breath coming in painful bursts. She looked under cars, behind pillars, even inside open trunks. "Daniel," Her voice echoed off the concrete walls, thin and desperate. A moment later, she sank against a pillar, sobbing into her hands. Please, God, don't take him from me. Please. Adrian found her like that and immediately knelt beside her. Hey, he said softly, don't break now. He needs you strong. I can't lose him, she whispered. I can't breathe without him. You won't lose him, Adrian promised. I won't let that happen. Her eyes lifted to his, filled with raw fear. Why are you trying so hard? Because he matters, Adrian said. And because you matter. Something in her expression softened. Not comfort, but the tiniest surrender of trust. Security radios crackled overhead. Level 1 cleared. Moving to level 2. Adrian stood, helping her up. Come on. There's one place we haven't checked. They hurried to the maintenance wing, an older part of the building few people entered. As they stepped inside, the hum of machinery grew louder, and the lights flickered with age. Alina's heart pounded. Daniel hates loud noises, she whispered. Why would he come here? Adrian scanned the dim corridor. Maybe he wasn't hiding. Maybe he was lost. They moved deeper into the hallway. The air felt heavy, filled with the metallic echo of pipes and vents. Suddenly, Adrian froze. Did you hear that? Alina held her breath. A faint rustle. Then a tiny, shaky sound. Mommy? Alina's knees almost gave out. Daniel! She screamed, running toward the voice. They followed the sound to a narrow utility room. The door was pushed open just enough for a small child to slip through. Adrian swung it wide, and there, sitting behind a stack of old boxes, was Daniel, his face streaked with tears, his small fists curled in fear. Mommy, he choked out. I thought you left. Alina fell to her knees and pulled him into her arms with such force it looked like she feared he might disappear if she didn't hold tight enough. I would never leave you, she cried. Never, never, never. Daniel sobbed into her shoulder. I saw people talking about you. They said bad things. I got scared. Oh, sweetheart, she whispered, smoothing his hair. None of that matters. You matter. You're safe with me. Adrian stepped closer, kneeling beside them. You scared us, he said gently, but you're okay now. Daniel blinked at him. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't, Adrian replied. You just made us remember what's important. Alina looked up at Adrian through tears. Her voice was soft but full of emotion. Thank you. I don't know what I would have done if you weren't here. He met her gaze, and something deep, unspoken passed between them. Something built on fear, trust, and the raw truth of the moment. Back in the main building, staff sighed with relief as the three returned. Daniel clung to his mother, and Alina stayed close to Adrian without even realizing it. The crisis had softened the distance she'd put between them. Later, when the chaos settled, Adrian walked Alina and Daniel to his office. Sit, he said gently. Both of you. Alina hesitated. We shouldn't be here. You should, Adrian insisted. Because what happened today can't happen again. I won't let it. She swallowed hard. What do you mean? He sat across from them, leaning forward. You need stability, safety, a home where Daniel feels secure, a job where you're respected, a future where you can use the talent you've hidden for years. Her eyes widened. Adrian, what are you saying? I'm offering you a position, he said. A real one. Design assistant. Part-time at first. Flexible hours. You'll train, learn, build a portfolio. I'll help with courses, materials, whatever you need. You're too gifted to stay unseen. Her lips trembled. I can't accept that. People will think. I don't care what people think, he said, voice steady. I care about what's right. Tears filled her eyes again, but this time they held something different, something hopeful. And your apartment, he added softly. Let me help you find a safer place. I'll cover the deposit. No conditions, no expectations. Alina's breath caught. Why? Why would you do all this? He reached out, taking her shaking hand in his. Because when I saw Daniel alone that day, and when I saw you breaking in that hallway, something changed in me. I don't want to stand on the sidelines of your lives. I want to help. She looked at their joined hands, then at Daniel, who nodded with a small, sleepy smile. Mommy, maybe he's our good thing. The words pierced through every wall she'd built. Alina wiped her tears. Okay, she whispered. I'll try. I'll accept the job and the help. And I'll trust you. Adrian's smile was warm, genuine. That's all I ask. Daniel leaned against him, exhausted but safe. Are we a family now? He murmured. Alina's cheeks flushed. Daniel. Adrian placed a gentle hand on the boy's back. We're something, he said softly, something that can grow. As the evening sunlight poured through the window, spilling warm gold across their faces, the three of them sat together, no longer CEO, cleaner, and child, but something deeper, something chosen, something quietly beginning. And though none of them spoke it aloud, each felt the same truth. Their lives had collided for a reason that was only just starting to unfold. Some stories don't arrive with grand fanfare. They slip quietly into ordinary days, into hallways where little boys whisper for help, into bathrooms where mothers hide their tears, into offices where powerful men discover their own missing pieces. Adrian never expected that opening a single locked door would open so many others. Alina never imagined that someone would see the strength behind her silence. And Daniel never thought he'd find a home in a place where he once felt small and unseen. Their lives didn't change overnight, but they changed honestly through trust, through patience, through the simple courage of choosing each other again and again. If this story touched you even a little, stay close. There are more journeys to share, more hearts to follow, more moments that remind us how powerful kindness can be. Until the next story, stay kind, stay hopeful, and keep your heart open.